of course, many of us would agree with much of what you have said, and it's great to hear it in such an articulate form. One thing I thought of, though, is that in addition to a national judiciary that will help citizens and also the government by forcing people to obey the law or become punished, I think there are two other aspects that are very important. One is the enforcement aspect of decisions, of legal decisions, which requires a police army system that is subservient to civil society. And the military of Congo was trained first, it has a strong tradition of training by the Belgians during the colony, and then by the United States and France and their allies such as Israel. And as a result, it has a whole culture of abusiveness and of not feeling that it's serving the nation or the population. So it seems to me that's a very important thing. The second is that the dictators I know most about, Leopold and the various colonial rulers after Leopold in Congo, and then Mobutu, is that none of them would have been able to function, would even have been installed, except that they were patronized by the NATO countries. The countries were in a strong alliance through which, despite any rivalries, they supported one another. Mm-hmm. And their decisions, again and again, were against the rule of law in Congo. Congo, at least, I don't know every period, of course, one is limited by one's historical reach, but during the first democracy, the brief democracy, the law system was quite good. And Lumumba himself pointed out some of it, that if you had to have the charges given to you, if you were incarcerated in 2 days or so, you had to be taken before a judge and have whoever brought you to jail explain why you were in jail. And if no one did, you were free. Well, none of that was enforced. And many other things were not enforced, but specifically the foreign countries involved then, and also later under Mobutu, they specifically didn't want to follow the rule of law in Congo because it would have made impossible the things that they were doing. So it seems to me that Congo getting very good alliances with countries that will support its true interests, and then somehow getting other countries and the UN on board, which they have not been in the past, to make these very strong countries that have been interfering so much with both military and economic means, supporting their multinationals. Canada may have great rule of law within Canada. It does not support rule of law abroad for its corporations in Congo, as you know from one of the speakers that's been part of the Loyola program, Alain Deneau, his work on Canadian corporations in Congo. So there seems to other levels of rule of law that need to be incorporated. Otherwise, you still have very powerful forces outside breaking the rules of international and Congolese law.
I mean, yes, in the concept of rule of law, enforcement or reform, security sector reform is part of the reforms that have to accompany rule of law implementation, because yes, obviously, a court order is not worth much if it cannot be enforced. And enforcement usually is an act of the executive branch, the police. So yes, absolutely, it has to be a reform that is comprehensive, that includes those sectors in the package. Now, I would say this about the influence that the external powers might have over reforms in the Congo. Without reaching too far back in history, my personal position has been that Congolese can reform their country if they want to. I don't believe that Canada will tell Congolese to start torturing their citizens in jail. Congolese can stop torturing their fellow Congolese today. They don't need Canadian instructions to do that. It's Congolese policemen torturing Congolese civilians. Congolese who are holding other Congolese in jail without any warrant do not get any foreign orders to do that. They can stop today. They can start enforcing the 48-hour rule today. They don't need outside orders to do that. So my point being, I don't want to disculpate the Congolese here. I don't want to take the blame off of the leadership of the country and place it on foreigners, because ultimately it is the Congolese country. It is for them to govern it. In history, yesteryear, today, and tomorrow, countries don't tend to give each other gifts. They tend to try to exploit one another. The Belgians did that in colonial times, and others have done it after them, after independence even. And so that's the reality of inter-country, international relationships. Congolese elite, ruling class, leadership has to learn how to cope with that. And complaining about foreign influence will not take it away, will not end foreign influence. It just won't, because it will not go away. People are always looking for cheaper resources. Countries are always hunting for cheaper resources. When they went on steamships and others looking for India, they were looking for resources. And when they went for the scramble of Africa, looking for resources. When we go to the Middle East today, we're looking for resources. Countries are always chasing the cheapest resource they can get. And Congo is not immune to that reality of nations. The Congolese governing class has to understand that and learn how to defend their country's interest within that system of nations. Because that won't change simply by complaining that the foreigners are coming and taking our stuff. Well, yes, they will keep coming. Build fences if you want, but they'll keep coming. So that's my general sense about the idea of who is to blame over
Probably we'll have to look at both. But if a strong man is not chosen by the electorate, that man is not accountable to the voters of the country.
No, I agree.
That's the point.
I agree. I agree.
That's why it's been so important for the NATO countries to have people in power like Habyarimana in Rwanda and his predecessor, because they then can have direct influence on the rulers, and the population can't have as much. That's what I mean, and I think some of that requires rule of law outside the country as well.
I agree, and that is an area where Congo has no control. Rule of law outside the country is international law. And we all know how international law is enforced or not enforced.
By might.
Exactly. So that's an area where Congo has no play. Congo can control what happens within its borders. Whether international law will be enforceable enough to place the blame on those who try to influence the affairs of other countries and shame them and so forth, maybe we'll get there one day. We are not there yet. So until we are there, Congo has to try to control what happens within its borders. And those strong men, strong leaders, they are Congolese. I will expect them to be more responsible than the Canadians or the Americans with respect to what happens within the Congo, because it is affecting their aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers. So my blame is really, really, really strongly on the leadership of the country than on the foreign. Again, I don't expect a lot of gift from the foreigners. I don't expect a lot of goodwill from them either. It's nice if we get it. It's nice if international law plays well and people play nice on international law, but they tend not to. And Congo has to accept and learn that. And our leaders have to learn how to play within that system.
Can we move on to another question? Does anyone else have a question on that?
Kind of piggyback on what she was talking about in terms of the international law or the rule of law. For example, in Nigeria, now they have oil resources as opposed to mineral wealth like the Congo. Would you say that the Nigerians control their economic growth irregardless of outside influences? If that's the case, how can the Congo, with the vast resources that it has, would be able to control its resources? You follow what I'm saying?
And the answer to that is what I talked about, which is strong institutions. Take a country that has as much oil as Nigeria. Take Norway. They have basically one resource, oil. Nigeria, one resource, oil. Why does one get wealth, the other one does not get the wealth from the oil that they have? Well, one has strong institutions, the other one has weak institutions. Now, for Nigeria, you can say, fine, we can put some blame on the history, the colonial past, it's a young country, it's a multiracial country, it's a creation of the scrum of Africa, so it's harder to have these things happen overnight. True. But the main difference is institutions between these two countries. They both depend on one resource for their economy, oil. So the day Nigeria has stronger institutions, rule of law, clear fight against corruption, they too will see the benefit of this natural resource. They will see them. There's no magic to it. And if Norway were to become governed like Nigeria, I'm telling you they will lose their benefit from their oil as well. They too will become a failed state, or at least they will go on the way becoming one. I don't say Nigeria is a failed state. It's not a failed state. It's a functioning state that's trying to better itself. But my point is, if Norway were to have weaker institutions, it would have more or less the same type of result you get from weaker countries.